Welcome back to Xanthia Games. Today, we are doing something new. A hardcore perma-death challenge in Dark and Darker. But before we go over the rules, let's explain what this game is, for those who don't know. Dark and Darker is a hardcore fantasy extraction RPG with dungeon crawling elements. It blends old-school RPG mechanics with modern PvPvE gameplay, where players explore dungeons, battle both AI monsters and other players, and try to extract with loot before the dungeon collapses. It has a gritty medieval atmosphere with a focus on strategic combat, class-based abilities, and punishing difficulty. This game can be brutal, but let's make it a little bit harder. We are calling this challenge the Legendary Adventurer. So let's go over the rules quickly before we begin. If your character dies, you must delete him. You must remove all gear except a weapon and a torch. The weapons are restricted to short sword, staff, or dagger. You cannot buy anything from the merchants. You can only use what you find in dungeons, and that includes potions or bandages. You must equip your best gear, not necessarily the highest score gear, but best for your build. You must play the dungeons in the following order: Ruins of the Forgotten Castle, Goblin Caves, and then Frost Mountain. And the last rule, when you're playing Ruins of the Forgotten Castle, you must go down one level to the catacombs. You do not have to go to the third level if you can avoid it. So, now we have a fresh character, let's grab some perks and make sure he only has a short sword and torch to begin. It is time. Our pathetic fighter begins his journey. In the gloom of the Forgotten Castle, he awoke among shattered stones and silent memories. Clad in nothing but an old sword and a poorly made torch, his heart kindled with resolve. He must secure a better weapon and armor to reclaim his lost honor. Yet before him, ethereal wisps swirled like spectral sentinels, guarding the precious loot with their haunting glow. With his old sword gripped tightly, he engaged the flickering spectre in a swift, practiced duel. As the wisp began its final, radiant flare, he instinctively averted his eyes, knowing that even a fleeting glance could condemn him to permanent blindness. His measured movements and guarded gaze revealed a fighter well acquainted with the terrors lurking in these forsaken halls. A warrior whose experience had been honed by countless battles against the horrors of this accursed place. After the wisp fell, its spectral glow dwindling into nothingness, two magical rings appeared among the scattered remnants of its form. The fighter paused only a moment, then carefully retrieved them, adding these enigmatic relics to the spoils of his hard-won victory. Bolts and a leather cap. Not the mystical treasure he had hoped for, but he has nothing else to his name. Slimes and skeletons. These ruins hide dangers far graver than the legends ever suggested. With a twist of fate, One skeletal foe revealed a sword of unexpected quality. Mimics masquerade as treasure chests in these cursed halls, deceiving the unwary. One misstep, and a foolhardy adventurer might become their next twisted meal. One by one, the monsters fell beneath his battle-hardened skill. In a curious choice, he favoured the arming sword over the falchion, a decision hinting at the discipline of a soldier, or perhaps the chivalry of a knight of the realm. Breaking open the crate sends a jarring clamour, echoing through the silent ruins, a necessary risk for the promise of better equipment. Yet he knows that such noise might stir unseen horrors lurking in every shadow, or worse, alert another adventurer driven by greed and willing to kill for a coveted prize. In an old chest, tucked away in a dusty corner, his keen eyes caught a glimpse of trap disarming kits. They were unassuming tools, yet, in these treacherous ruins, he knew well that even a minor device could spell the difference between life and death. "These might come in handy," he murmured, pocketing them with the same care he reserved for his prized relics, aware that the labyrinth of traps left by long-departed denizens still harboured hidden perils. The ringing of the old church bell echoed through the night, its deep tones a solemn herald of an impending curse. Each toll warned that the darkness was stirring, a relentless force waiting to claim those who lingered too long. In this cursed land, time itself seemed to falter as shadows crept ever closer, ready to devour any soul foolish enough to defy the bell's mournful warning. At last, a bit of armour. It wasn't a full suit. Yet as he fastened it over his torso, the relentless cursed chill that had once gnawed at his bare skin began to ebb away, offering him a small but vital measure of protection. Mummies, rotting, cursed souls whose very presence demanded swift and decisive action. Despite their decayed, repulsive forms, these fallen guardians often clutched relics of bygone splendour, aged rings, time-worn necklaces, and precious gemstones glinting amidst the decay. Each encounter, as repulsive as it was, carried the tantalising promise of rewards that made every perilous battle worth the risk. A longsword, a true knight's weapon. The church bell rang out once more, its mournful tones reverberating through the silent ruins. With each echo, the encroaching darkness thickened, a relentless tide of night poised to overtake him if he lingered. The red torches lined the ancient stairs, their flickering glow leading him into the deeper, shadowed ruins. Summoning every bit of courage, he stepped into the unknown, each footfall echoing on stone and carrying him further from the safety of familiar light. With only a few healing potions remaining, he recognized the need for a brief reprieve. In a quiet alcove of the ruins, he paused to tend to his wounds and gather his strength before plunging back into the unknown. The deeper he ventured, the more potent the undead became. One skeleton, its bones drenched in a dark crimson stain, moved with a power that belied its fractured form. At the far end of the room, a skeleton mage loomed, a silent, ominous figure whose very presence hinted at arcane malice. Not wishing to test the mage's power further, the clever knight devised a cunning plan. He baited the skeletal mage onto a hidden array of spike traps, its deadly points lurking beneath the stone floor. At that precise moment, the skeletal mage, eager to tip the scales, unleashed a searing firebolt that struck a nearby chest. Its burst of flame unexpectedly catching the mage in its inferno. In that chaotic confrontation, the undead was vanquished without the knight ever needing to swing his sword. Footsteps echoed from the shadows, a measured cadence that broke the eerie silence. The knight's heart quickened as he strained to discern the source, another adventurer making their approach. Friend or foe, the question hung in the air. As he moved to investigate, the mysterious footsteps abruptly faded into silence. It seemed fate had robbed him of the chance to confront his unknown visitor, leaving only the echo of uncertainty in the dim corridors. Deep within the ruins, he discovered a forgotten shrine. A relic of protection, its weathered stones still aglow with an ethereal light. Amid the decay, this beacon of hope beckoned him, promising a brief sanctuary from the relentless darkness and peril that had shadowed his every step. A portal must be found to escape. The darkness thickens as small flesh-eating bugs scuttle into the hallway, their sinister buzzing, a stark reminder that time is running out. The adventurer's heart quickens. Each moment, the encroaching curse brings him closer to a fate sealed in shadow. Stress begins to take its toll as he wiped the bugs from his face. Their tiny forms a constant reminder of the ruin's decay. Frantically, the fighter scoured the passageways for an escape, his pace quickening with every echoing footstep. With every risk taken, the urgency grew, pushing him deeper into the maze in search of a portal that could free him from the relentless darkness. His urgency to escape compromised his focus in battle. Every misstep or ill-timed strike becomes a costly mistake, but he could ill afford to be injured without the precious items needed to heal himself. time was nearly out when a twisted fortune smiled upon him. A hidden treasure room unveiled itself in a burst of glittering promise. Amid chests overflowing with gold and relics of bygone glory, he found himself torn between the lure of fortune and fame, and the stark, urgent need to secure his own life. His greed got the better of him as he frantically rifled through the treasure, his eyes gleaming at the promise of riches. Yet even as he clutched at fortune, tiny, flesh-eating bugs began their slow, relentless assault on his skin. In the midst of glittering chests and ancient relics, no escape portal revealed itself. Only the grim reminder that time was running out. The relentless bite of the bugs became unbearable, their searing pain driving him into one last chamber in desperate search of an escape. As his eyes scanned the dim room for any sign of a portal, a grim realization took hold. There was no way out, and only one final act remained. Overwhelmed by the pain and dwindling hope, he steeled himself. There was no choice but to plunge deeper into the dungeon. The relentless dungeon depths loomed before him, and though his mind had finally cleared of the treasure's seductive poison, he found himself unable to press onward, paralyzed by the fear of what might await in the darkness. He had no choice but to tend his wounds and rest. Trapped in these cursed depths, he never wished to be here, yet the grim reality was that he might never return. All he desired was a better life for his family. The treasure he could bring back might change their fortunes in these dark times. As he settled into a cold corner of the dungeon, the weight of his sacrifice bore down upon him, each heartbeat a silent promise of hope amidst despair. Battered and alone, he could only listen to the haunting sounds echoing from behind the ancient doors. Then he heard it. A grinding sound as the ancient portal stone began to rise from the floor. Its slow, deliberate ascent filled the silence with a mechanical echo, a promise of escape and a renewed chance at life. There it was, glowing blue atop a weathered platform, pulsing with an otherworldly light. All he had to do now was reach it, a single step between him and the promise of escape. From the high ceiling, a winged demon, alerted by his presence, swooped down in a fury of tattered wings. Driven by the hope of life and the promise of escape, he met the fiend with renewed courage, his blade singing a defiant hymn against the encroaching darkness. Cautiously, he pressed onward, each step measured and deliberate. So close now, he knew one misstep could shatter his fragile hope, and he couldn't afford that. Ambushed by another demon, the silence shattered into a chaotic battle for survival. Every swing of his sword was now a desperate fight for his life. It was as if the dungeon itself conspired to thwart his escape, its every trap and shadow closing in as he neared salvation. With an epic turn of events, time finally shifted in his favour. He began to scour the treasure-laden room with renewed purpose, his eyes alight with wonder. Each relic and dusty artifact hinted at long-forgotten power, as if the dungeon itself had hidden potent tools to aid his escape. Driven by hope and the promise of newfound strength, he wondered which of these ancient items might prove his salvation in the battles yet to come. Putrid zombies barred his path downward, their decayed forms a grim reminder of the dungeon's cruelty. Yet, driven by the promise of true power, he pressed on, determined to overcome every obstacle in his relentless quest. In the echoing gloom of the chamber, skeletal prisoners still lingered, their brittle forms clattering with each shuffling step. Yet these relics of the past were no match for a knight properly outfitted for battle. With his sturdy shield raised high, every measured step deflected the feeble blows of ancient bones. The gleam of his armour and the resolute fire in his eyes spoke of battles won and the promise of future victories. One by one, the skeletal foes fell before his disciplined might, their crumbling forms serving as a grim reminder that, even in death, loyalty to a just cause could never stand against true valor. At the bottom of the chamber, the floor was a grim mosaic of human remains, the lost adventurers whose hopes had been extinguished long ago. Their scattered bones and remnants of gear spoke of a final, desperate stand. This desolate graveyard was unmistakable. It was here that the evil had been gathering its dark power, feeding off the fallen. Every shattered artifact and broken limb testified to the malevolent force drawing strength from the despair of those who dared to challenge it. With time running out, and the bugs oozing out of the walls, he knew it was time to leave. Reluctantly, he abandoned the grim evidence of lost souls and dark power, gathering his strength for one final desperate escape from the encroaching decay. Now, seated in the familiar warmth of the tavern, his battered frame leaned back against a scarred wooden table, and a quiet smile fought its way through the exhaustion. His eyes, still shadowed by the horrors of the dungeon, now softened with relief. Every ache and scar told a story of battles won against monstrous foes, of dodged death, and the grim determination that had carried him through the darkness. Yet as he cradled a mug of ale in calloused hands, the weight of his journey pressed upon him. The memories of putrid zombies, blood-soaked skeletons, and the echoing terrors of the cursed depths mingled with a bittersweet sense of victory. He had escaped the clutches of evil, not merely for glory or treasure, but for the promise of a better life for his family, a future that now shimmered like a distant, welcoming light. In that moment of fleeting peace, he felt a profound transformation. The hardened warrior had become a man who understood the fragile beauty of hope. Though forever changed by the darkness he faced, he cherished the certainty that his sacrifices were not in vain. The tavern's lively hum and gentle clinks of glasses offered him solace, a reminder that even in the bleakest of trials, a new dawn was always on the horizon. Thanks for watching, Dark Wolf has reached level 8 with a gear score of 275 after his first harrowing run. His journey isn't over yet. His next challenge awaits in the treacherous Goblin Caves. Stay tuned for part 2 of his adventures.